So we just harvested the crop after a lot of work. So is that it? Is that the end of our journey? Not quite. So we have one last step, that is storage. If you recall from our tomato experience, we had a lot of tomatoes after harvest and we need to store them safely in the fridge for later use. Similarly, farmers have a lot of grains when they do harvest and they need good ways to safely store them for use over a long period of time. And in this video, we are going to look at various methods farmers use to store their grains. What are the potential dangers to the crop that the farmer must guard against? So the first thing is moisture. Moisture can lead to the growth of microbes, which can in turn cause the grains to decay. So those grains then become unfit for consumption. The second danger is pests. Pests are nothing but insects, worms, rodents, anything that can either eat the grains or just damage them. So these are two things that the farmer must ensure that the grains are protected against in any storage method. So before storing the grains, the very first thing the farmers do is to make sure that they are completely evaporated of any moisture. And they do that by letting the grains sit out and letting them dry in the sun. Once they are sure that the grains have dried up, they are then taken and stored in jute bags or metal containers. Now, both are very good at keeping moisture away, thereby keeping the grains inside nice and dry. So these jute bags or metal containers are then stored in granaries. So these granaries are nothing but very large rooms. These rooms are built in such a way that they are good at keeping moisture away. So for example, they can be built at an elevated height that even when it rains, the water would not seep in easily. And they can be built with good ventilation, good sunlight coming inside, and all of these will help in making sure that the moisture does not enter into the grains. So in some cases the farmers own a granary themselves, or in other cases there are 3 or 4 farmers who together own a granary and they use it for storage. Now the second method is called as a silo. The second method of storage is nothing but a large cylindrical structure that is made out of concrete. This is a little more sophisticated when compared to granaries. So they have inbuilt mechanisms within the structure to ensure that the moisture and temperature, all of these are kept at the right level for good grain storage. So in this case, the farmer can just take that dried up grains and dump it all inside the silo, and thereby providing a good environment for grain storage. Even with all this protection, these tiny pests sometimes find their way to the grains, and we need a way to keep them at bay. So if you recall at your home, you might have seen your parents add neem leaves to grains that are stored at home. The reason they do this is because neem leaves release a chemical. That chemical is very good at keeping these pests away. So farmers use something very similar, but they can't find enough neem leaves to fill up the silo. So rather they depend on scientists. So scientists, what they do is they manufacture chemicals that are very similar to the ones that are released by these neem leaves. So farmers can then just take them and spray them on top of these grains, and that helps prevent these pests from entering these granaries or silos. This provides an additional layer of protection on top of all the things that we have seen so far. So let's do a quick summary. We started by looking at the dangers that the farmer needs to keep in mind when storing grains, which was one, moisture, and second, pests. We looked at 2 structures used to store the grains, granaries and silos. Lastly, we saw chemicals that can be sprayed as an additional layer of protection against pests. So with that, we have reached the end of this journey of crop production. I would like to really thank you for sticking with me throughout this journey, and I really hope you had fun and you learned a lot of new, exciting, interesting things, I hope you find it useful. So before we go, there is one last bit of information. So in the next video, we'll learn about different types of crops. We'll learn about kharif and rabi crops. In that, we will also see how all the things that we have learned so far relate to the different types of crops.